informed.
Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, fueling philanthropic programs and dedicated to creating educational and professional opportunities for Alaska Native people.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting this evening's show. Taking a look at the breakup chart here, you can see most are open here on the upper stretch of the Yukon there. And then some open here all the way down, right, almost all the way out to the coastline there. Still have some open here along the Porcupine River, and then the Noatak and Kobuk rivers, or Koyukuk rivers there, starting to loosen up a little bit there, although this is just really unknown. And then up next will be the North Slope rivers. Moving on to the Alaska River Watch page here. Again, if you see anything, contact us through any one of these methods there, from Facebook to email or a phone call. And for the satellite imagery today, you can see a huge cloud shield here with a pretty active front rolling right up to the coastline into the Gulf of Alaska, and a good southwest flow here that pushed rain in over the northern panhandle today up to the North Gulf Coast, of course back down toward Kodiak Island, where they had upwards of 3/4 of an inch today, and then cloud spreading over Bristol Bay, and actually rain down along the Alaska Peninsula there all the way out to Unalaska. Up over the interior, not a bad day up there. Some developing clouds and some scattered showers up through that area from, looks like, just south of Arctic Village, on back down toward northeast Norton Sound. And the Arctic coast, wind's pretty light today with some patchy fog early on, but a lot of low clouds up in that area. And again, that extends down here into the Bering Strait with IFR all the way down to Nunivak Island and areas of that out over the Bering Sea, with the next system out there to the west pushing in towards Shimia. They'll continue to gradually work its way eastward over the next couple of days. Main low center here well to the south there, and it's going to take a couple more days here for that thing to actually finally move on through into the southeast coast, but until then you're going to stay in a wet weather pattern. On today's chart here, there's a rain spreading right northward there to the North Gulf Coast. Good gale force winds out of the east here as well across the Gulf of Alaska, Middleton Island, gusts of 50 miles per hour, and winds increasing along the coast and coming back down around that low center there on the northwest side. We had winds gusting 40 to 50 or 30 to 50 miles per hour for the western Alaska Peninsula on out toward Dutch Harbor, with clouds and rain there. Again, heaviest back up toward Shelikof Strait and Kodiak Island, and some rain coming into actually areas of Cook Inlet this afternoon, even to a greater extent there on the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, and then some sunshine up here over the interior, which helped trigger some scattered showers along that trough axis, again from the southern eastern Brooks Range area right on down into the Kuskokwim Delta. And then the low clouds and fog out here over the eastern Bering Sea, with areas IFR all the way up and back around to the Arctic coast. We'll see for tonight out west there, that front brings wind and rain into the western Aleutians, starting to slip on into the Atka area late tonight. High pressure here over the Bering Sea in advance of that, combined with this low here south of the Alaska Peninsula. It's going to keep conditions windy through much of tonight, with gale warnings out for tonight there for the Alaska Peninsula. but less wind up to the north. Low clouds, fog, maybe some flurries. St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait, but nothing significant. And variable clouds, patchy fog, maybe some flurries to the north slope and the Arctic coast as well. Otherwise, good south to north flow here, pushing that front inland, but most of the moisture gets kind of hung up either back along the coast here or on the southern side of the Alaska Range. Next extends on down to the southwest, so some rain here, western Cook Inlet, over to the mountains, extending down into Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula. And the front edging its way eastward, probably stay dry down over the southern areas, but some gusty winds and rain increasing as you go north there toward June, and of course back toward Yakutat. A fair amount of rain falling tonight there from Elfin Cove over to possibly as far west as Cordova. And then for tomorrow, that front finally kicks eastward here, so the rain will begin to taper off and change over to showers. It'll be a slow process with that continued southwest flow aloft here, with the main low center still southeast of Kodiak Island. Rain becomes more showery for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound as well. Low pressure up over the eastern interior. Clouds and chance of rain up in that area, mostly north of the Tanana Valley. Some showers in the Copper River Basin. Scattered showers here over the Kuskokwim Valley on out to the delta areas there, and then drier in the west here with that higher pressure edging its way into the coastline. A pretty good area of showers developing with isolated thunderstorms there from northeast Norton Sound and Nulato Hills there across the Koyukuk Valley into the upper Yukon, and really no change up along the Arctic coast. And that next front will bring the rain into at least as far east as Nikolsky by the afternoon hours. And for Saturday, that front really not moving all that fast, just kind of pushes its way tomorrow or Saturday afternoon right on top of Unalaska there, but close enough to spread a fair amount of rain in across the Alaska Peninsula. Wind's not all that bad at all. Increasing chances of rain here along the southwest coast, Nunivak Island, but staying south of St. Lawrence Island, and then a lot of showers and clouds behind the front. And over the interior, higher pressure here developing now in that upper trough signified by this dark line there, moving through the Panhandle finally, and so showers be pretty numerous to start the day with, and then those will gradually diminish throughout the afternoon and linger into the evening. Otherwise back to the west, partly to maybe mostly sunny day at the Copper River Basin, probably mostly cloudy here for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. A few breaks Kodiak Island, partly sunny for south central Alaska, scattered showers along the Alaska Range. Mostly cloudy up in the Tanana Valley central interior areas with some scattered possible afternoon thunderstorms, and drier back to the west. Low clouds and fog areas continue along the Arctic coast and through the Bering Strait. Temperatures this afternoon across the Panhandle were in the upper 50s down over the southern part of the state there with Metlakatla at 58, with the rain just 45 at Juneau. About the same in Yakutat, and pretty uniform 40s here along the North Gulf Coast with the clouds and rain moving in with the wind. 40s here, upper 40s for the Kenai Peninsula. Valdez pushed up to 45, mid 40s for Kodiak Island, and lower 50s there in the Susitna Valley. 40s for the Copper River Basin, or 30s and 40s there depending on your elevation. And 50s here across the Tanana Valley with Northway at 58, Fairbanks 57, 52 at Tanana, and McGrath there back up to 57, Stony at 51, and on up to the north, Fort Yukon 55, 51 at Bettles, 37 at Anatuvik, and then the North Slope in the 20s there with Umiat Airfield at 29, teens and 20s on the Arctic coast with 18, pretty common there at Dead Horse, Nuiqsut, and Barrow. 25 Point Lay, and then into the 30s, lower 30s there, lower to mid 30s there along the northwest coast, and 44 at Nome with Elam up to 52, but 26 at Tin City, 28 there at Gamble, and for the coast out there, mid to upper 30s here along the coast, 36 at Macoriac, but Kipnik was up to 51, and lower to mid 50s there for the Bethel area. And for the Pribilofs, upper 30s this afternoon, and 40s here for the Alaska Peninsula, right around 40 throughout much of the day here for the eastern Aleutians, and that same pattern all the way out to the west. For the lows forecast for tonight, mid 40s here for the Panhandle, Not much change from today except a little cooler, cooling off the most there over the southern areas. Lower 40s south central Alaska, down across Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula, with 30s up over the interior areas, but the above side of freezing 30s here all the way back down to the southwest coast, with 30 the forecast low for St. Paul, upper 30s for the Aleutians, and teens and 20s for the North Slope and the Arctic coast. For the highs tomorrow, again warmest here from northeast to southwest, with 50s to lower 60s all through that area. Coolest on the North Slope there, 20s for the most part. Right near freezing here for the Bering Strait and the Seward Peninsula, western Seward Peninsula, otherwise 40s. 40s to mid-50s, Bristol Bay, 40s for the Aleutians. Flying weather tomorrow, IFR here along the southeast coast, otherwise marginal for the Gulf of Alaska back to Kodiak Island. Some of that working into southern Alaska. Lots of IFR again continuing here for the Chukchi Sea, right down into the northern Bering, and then right into the coastline here, including Nunivak Island and the eastern Arctic coast, maybe some areas of the North Slope. Another huge area with that next system coming in to the west there. And we'll see tomorrow afternoon that looks something like this. Stays pretty socked in here over the southeast coast. Becomes a little less widespread up here over the northern Bering Sea areas, but still from St. Lawrence Island on up. Looks pretty good for some IFR into tomorrow afternoon. Marginal conditions, North Slope, and especially the Arctic coast. Lots of IFR here with that next system into the central Bering Sea, Adak and Atka, and again approaching Nikolsky. So passes though, Anaktuvik, VFR, and Sealing's visibilities will be of the VFR variety for Adigan. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, lowest conditions on the eastern approaches, probably VFR there on the west side. And for rainy, occasional marginal VFR at times. Windy, possible marginal conditions, southern entrance, otherwise VFR. Isabel, marginal. Nantasta, though, probably staying VFR. Tanita looks good, VFR there. Portage, marginal. And Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR, deteriorating to IFR in the afternoon. Freezing levels showing 4,000 feet right over interior Alaska, and a cooler pocket here over the Copper River Basin. And then we've got 2,000 to 4,000 feet there across the southeast coast. Not much of a thermal gradient at all out here over the Bering Sea, with roughly 2,000 feet at the surface here. North of the Pribilof, but east of St. Lawrence Island, cutting across near or just south of the Brooks Range. Moving on to icing, we'll see occasional moderate or light to occasional isolated moderate rime icing possible here. Shifting eastward with the next front into the across the central Aleutians toward the Fox Islands, increasing toward the Pribilofs late in the day, and then another area here, a little more significant than even that one, across the southeast coast of that deep moisture layer flowing northward there in that southwesterly jet, mostly above about 7,000 feet. And then some scattered areas here for the North Gulf Coast, the extreme eastern Alaska range of mixed icing, and back up here over the north central interior. Winds aloft, again, good flow southwest to northeast, keeping the moisture flowing right into the panhandle, the upper low back through this area. And that eventually is going to kick off to the northeast and move through, but that probably won't happen until late Saturday, at which time when that happens, then it'll dry out. It looks like some pretty good high pressure developing here over the Gulf of Alaska. So once you get through Saturday, Sunday, Monday into the first of next week, look pretty dry there for the panhandle. Not much change here over the interior areas. And southwest 120 knots there over the central Aleutians. 9,000 foot wind flow, low pressure southeast of Kodiak Island, kind of a broad trough here over the southern interior. 30 knot winds there along the Alaska Peninsula, south 35 to 40 knots along the panhandle, otherwise pretty light and more variable over the interior, right up to the Arctic coast, and southwesterlies 20 to 40 knots over the southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians. 9,000 feet, same pattern here, broad area low pressure over southern Alaska, light variable winds there, more easterly but staying light up to the north, and northwesterlies 15 to 20 there across along the southwest coast, and then southwest 20 to 30 knots, southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians, that whole area shifting eastward. And taking a look at turbulence, got light to isolated moderate chop, mostly the northern panhandle on into Canada there, with pumping conditions extending down almost to Heidelberg, and then those northwest winds continuing but diminishing here, so there'll still be some moderate chop there for the Alaska Peninsula, all below about 5,000 feet. Another area here for the central illusions with the next system, then some, again, possible thunderstorm activity developing in the afternoon of the isolated or widely scattered variety up there in the interior. And after the break of Hangar Flying, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
The transit of Mercury.
Welcome to Stargazers. I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida.
And I'm Dean Regas, astronomer for the Cincinnati Observatory. We're here to help you find your way around the sky. The astronomical event of 2016 is happening next week, and I have been waiting years to see it.
It's not a planetary conjunction, and it's not a lunar or solar eclipse, but it is something so rare that it only occurs 13 times every century.
The tiny planet Mercury will go directly between us and the sun. You'll be able to see Mercury completely silhouetted by the fusion-y furnace that is our sun.
It's called a transit of Mercury, and we'll get you ready to view this rare event safely on May 9th. Let's show you.
The date is Monday, May 9th, and is just before sunrise. If we're going to see Mercury pass in front of the sun, that means we have to look during the daytime. So we'll go through the entire day to see what happens.
First, let's appreciate the sunrise. Night owls like Dean over there rarely see the beauty and grandeur of the sky at this time of day.
Definitely beautiful.
The sun will rise north of east, move up and to the right, cut slowly and surely across the southern sky, and then set in the northwest. Did you notice anything?
I sure didn't. I thought this transit of Mercury was some awesome event. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary.
That's because a transit of Mercury is a subtle alignment that takes a skillful, savvy observer to witness, and one needs access to some extra equipment. Mercury is small after all, and staring at the sun too long will strike you blind.
First, you'll need a safe solar filter, one that is approved by astronomers to look at the sun. Do not use sunglasses, foil, CDs, film negatives, mylar, x-rays, or any homemade filter. They will not protect you.
Solar eclipse glasses and number 14 welder's glass would protect you from the sun, but you'll need more than that to see Mercury on that day. You'll need magnification.
Mercury is so small compared to the sun that you will not be able to see it with the naked eye. That means you need to put safe filters on binoculars and telescopes just to see it. Good filters go in front of the lenses or mirrors and block out the light before entering the telescope.
Once you're properly outfitted, here's what the sun will look like with a zoomed-in view. You'll first see Mercury at around 7:13 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time as a little black spot growing along the edge of the sun. At 7:16, Mercury will appear completely inside the sun's disk.
To paraphrase a certain song, there'll be a little black spot on the sun this May.
Indeed. Then you can watch Mercury slowly continue in its orbit around the sun and pass directly in front of it, minute by minute, hour by hour. At 10:30 a.m., it will be about halfway through.
Then at 2:38 p.m., Mercury starts heading off the sun, and 3 minutes later, Mercury is invisible once more. So a transit of Mercury can last over 7 hours, with the most exciting parts at the beginning and the end.
If you don't have a safe solar filter and a telescope, contact your local astronomy club or planetarium. Chances are they'll be viewing this rare event and welcome guests. Astronomers, whether amateur or professional, love sharing the heavens with others. So, see if your community is planning a transit of Mercury party on May 9th.
Finally, notice that the transit lasts from 7:13 a.m. to 2:41 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Please adjust your time accordingly. That means that people on the West Coast will not see the beginning of the transit. The sun will not have risen at that time.
But fear not, you'll still see hours of it before Mercury departs the sun's disk. Stargazers on the East Coast will see the entire thing, including my brother Chris, whose birthday is May 9th.
I've waited to see this since November 8th, 2006. That was the last transit of Mercury, and I got clouded out.
And if you miss this one, the next transit of Mercury won't be until November 11th, 2019. In other words, on May 9th, you better keep looking up.
Welcome back. We're looking at the sea ice, or not the sea ice, the sea surface temperature chart here. Warming up along the southwest coast. Had a current last week bringing some warmer conditions up into that area. And of course, Norton Sound warming up there where the water's been open longer. Then the distinctly colder area here over the northern Bering Sea, which happens to correspond with where the ice is here. Still some heavier stuff there on the north side of St. Lawrence Island. On down to the south a little bit, this area here, western Norton Sound, they're gradually diminishing, and then some heavier ice here across the northern Bering Sea to about St. Matthew Island. And again, this all kind of shifting around from one day to the next, but all tending to continue to melt away. And for the marine forecasts here, small craft advisories, some good 30-knot southerly winds out along the coast with 13-foot seas. About the same on the wind speed even over the inside waters there. Stevens Passage south 30 knots, south 30 for the Stevens Passage, southeast 30 for Clarence Strait. Lynn Canal southerly, same thing, 30 knots, some higher gusts. And for Saturday, winds drop off here just southeast 15 for Clarence Strait, gradually increasing as you head north at 25 knots there for Lynn Canal. And small craft advisories for those southwest winds on the south coast, otherwise south to southeast 20, 12 to 13-foot seas for the north side. Prince William Sound tomorrow, easterlies at about 20 knots, but lighter conditions here across the North Gulf Coast, south to southeast at 10 to 15. With 10-foot seas here all across the area down to Kodiak. Pretty light winds, 10 to 15 knots there for areas around Kodiak Island. Kamishak Bay, east 15, north to northeast at 15 for all of Cook Inlet. And then for Saturday, southwest 20 knots here for Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait, but light winds for the Barren Islands, and northwesterlies 15 to 20 knots for the North Gulf Coast with seas around 10 feet. Pretty light winds with slight seas for Prince William Sound and Cook Inlet. Light south winds up to 15 at times. That extends all the way back down to Kamishak Bay, and those seas just 3 to 4 feet. Bristol Bay, light northwest winds tomorrow at about 15, but some good northwest winds here at about 30 knots. Down from the gales you see tonight, but still hanging pretty good there at 30 knots with 9 to 11-foot seas. And here even much lighter winds there southwest of Kodiak Island. Then for Saturday, southerlies 20 to 25 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, southwest 20 from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, and Bristol Bay south at 15 with 4-foot seas. For the Aleutians, small craft advisories sums it up for all those areas. Southwesterly 20 to 30 knots there right into the central Aleutians, and then the direction kind of varies here, south to southwest there, west in Nikolsky to northwest 25 to 30 across down Alaska Island. And for Saturday, westerlies 25 to 30 knots here out to the west, and coming down, lighter winds, west-southwest 15 to 20, Adak and Atka, and 20 to 25 knots mostly from the south for the Fox Islands. And for the southwest coast, northwest 15 to 20 knots, light northerlies there for St. Lawrence Island, but small craft advisories here for the northern Bering Sea, southeast 25 knots, light south winds for the Pribilofs. And the outlook for Saturday, south up to 20 knots there for St. Paul and St. George, and southeast here for the coast at about 20 knots, turn more easterly there across St. Matthew Island, and light east winds for St. Lawrence Island. Up along the Arctic coast, we've got easterly winds 10 to 15 knots here all across the area. Northeast, a little stronger, 15 to 20 knots there down to toward Point Hope, and then from Wales to Cape Thompson, north at 15. And for Saturday, light northwest breezes now in this area, northeast there around the Capes at about 15 knots, the western coast east at 15. And now northeast winds from the central coast all the way over to Demarcation Point at about 10 to 15 knots. Looking at tonight's weather again, gales tonight, at least through this evening for the North Gulf Coast, but those will gradually be diminishing. You can see the pressure gradient relaxing behind the front here. Windy, wet conditions mostly over the central, especially the northern and northwest panhandle. Staying dry down here to the south there, but a lot of clouds. Front moves inland here, really not able to bring much moisture into the Tanana Valley or north of the Alaska Range, kind of hung up along and on the southern and eastern slopes of the mountains there, right down into Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula. Periods of rain continue here from the North Gulf Coast, but gradually becoming lighter with some showers following in behind. And the gale warning still out here for the Alaska Peninsula. Periods of rain drying out there for the eastern Aleutians, but still looks wet from especially the north side of the peninsula here up into northeast Bristol Bay. Areas of low clouds and fog, IFR there, southwest coast up into the Bering Strait. There's the next front out west, which brings some rain eastward tomorrow. Showers mostly cloudy over interior Alaska. Showers here more numerous along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound area. Front moves through, precipitation continues but diminishes throughout the day there for the Panhandle area. And showers linger but start to diminish, especially late Saturday here over the southeast coast. Higher pressure, drier conditions, maybe a little more sunshine. Southern Alaska, scattered showers, variable clouds up over the interior, and rain with this front here from the southwest coast, especially Nunivak Island, down across the Alaska Peninsula, but winds don't look terribly strong associated with that. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.